beautiful beings, and welcome to an episode of our Revolutionary Rich series inside of Here We Grow, where we drop into deep conversations with phenomenal powerhouse visionaries that are revolutionizing the way that they are stewarding money and liberating themselves through their work and allowing for business and money and wealth to be a tool for collective liberation and liberating your lineage and allowing for the leadership and reclamation of leadership to be something that's dismantling old systems that cause toxicity and harm and inequality and things of this nature. And so today I'm really excited to be dropping in with a dear beloved sister who has come into my life, and there's been such extraordinary mirrors. And this is what I think is so beautiful about these revolutionary rich conversations in this podcast inside of Here We Grow, is that the mirrors that we get to see in each other open up so much within our hearts, within our bodies, within our spirits, when we see not only what's possible, but we see the reflections of what we've gone through in our different journeys with and beyond money. And so I'm really looking forward to getting to share this conversation with my dear sister, Anna Rogers, who has now arrived in this space. We're going to let her in.
Hi, Jasmine.
Hi, beauty. How are you?
I am great. I am so excited for today's conversation.
Me too. And I think the timing is so synchronistic because you just came back from being in your homelands and getting to support and love and pour into your family. And inside of my world and inside of these conversations, so much of the wisdom and the medicine has been in how our work gets to liberate our lineage
Mhm.
and how this work is so deeply ancestral. And so I'm like, oh, what perfect timing for us to get to drop in. And also the raw and the real of what it takes to hold more of your power in your body and in your leadership, and how it is the full spectrum humanness, like the challenges and the pain and the realities that happen, as we continue to expand our capacity to have more responsibility, in our work and our leadership. And so I'm so excited for everything that you are going to be able to share and that we get to drop into. And I want to give some space for you to share about yourself and introduce yourself to those of you who are listening here live or who are dropping into the replay. This is their first time getting to know you.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you for having me. When you mentioned earlier that there's this like beautiful mirror, I feel exactly the same way because there's so many overlaps. And this is what I've found when you speak and meet to women who want to be wealthy but are so deeply anchored into the work that they're here to do. And that's why I love having these conversations. So if you don't know who I am, my name's Anna Rogers. I'm originally from the Philippines. I actually left the Philippines and started a business 10 years ago, but I literally went from making, at that time, my first job, which I calculated this, which now seems so crazy, I was making $369 every single month, working a 9 to 5 job. And
Wow.
so obviously that wasn't enough. And so I worked another 4 hours on the side and until I got my base salary to $1,000. But that was $1,000 working 13-hour days. And so for me to be able to grow multiple companies, at this point, my husband and I have grown and scaled 4 different companies to multiple 6 and 7 figures. It is such a powerful testament to the fact that you can really create your own reality. And I say this like all the time. I'm just like, guys, like if I was able to do this, like literally go from making $360 to scaling multiple companies, I was just like, the power is right at our fingertips, and we just have to claim it and boldly say that, yes, I want to be revolutionary rich and have this like overflow of wealth and abundance.
Mm. Oh, I love that your introduction already speaks into the beginning of your money journey, because that's one of the things that I think has been so valuable inside of this series is hearing like the journey of how we have worked within our own body, within our own life, within our own circumstances to create realities that before didn't feel possible or didn't feel accessible, and especially as women of color. And so I would love to, yeah, get to dive into that piece around your beginnings of when you started to see realities that you hadn't even thought possible for yourself, and how, as a woman of color, especially, you worked within yourself. And this applies to women of all races and all backgrounds, but there's of course specific things that as women of color that we have to navigate and that we get to like rise beyond within these larger systems of society to get to claim revolutionary richness, and especially in systems where it's like America is one, but I know it exists, of course, all over the world in different ways. And so, given your upbringing and what was normalized in your culture, and then, shifting and evolving and reclaiming, let's just dive into that. Your journey of like, oh wow, I get to experience wealth. I get to step into multiple six figures. I get to step into seven figures. I get to be someone who's a millionaire, a multimillionaire that's stewarding wealth in a way that's really in alignment with my soul and with my spirit, especially having come from, which I'm right there with you, exhaustion from overworking and depletion and just feeling like, like a slave to the system. Like, like I'm calling it exactly how it is. So yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, but it's exactly that. It's you feel like you're a slave to the system because you don't know what's possible. And so for me, one of the reasons why I love storytelling is because a story changed my life. This was literally 10 years ago. And I met my now husband, Tom. At the time we met when we were traveling and we were backpacking. And, we started dating. And then he was just like, I really want to start traveling again. And I'm like, okay, I don't have money anymore. I literally spent the last of my money to go traveling. So I was just like, we need to start a business. And so at that time, I was just, of course, it sounded like a great idea when you're like 4 months into dating. We're like, we should start a business. And so at the time, I literally was just like, okay, I'm going to go and Google. And I went in Google and I found the story of this guy who said, yeah, I'm making $5,000 a month from my online website. At that time, I was so blown away. I was literally making $1,000 every single month. I was like, 5,000? Oh my God. Like I could travel for ages on that. And so I got so excited and I literally like yelled to Tom. I was like, I know what we're doing. This is the business we're going to do. And so we did. And so that was like this crazy just like jump into the world of entrepreneurship. We had no idea what we were doing. We started an online blog, which we then started growing and we were traveling. And at that time, we thought it was a great idea of just like dating, traveling. I was broke, but it somehow worked. And that opened up so many opportunities of, oh, this is possible. I don't have to be confined in my country just to make money. At that time, this was like 10 years ago. Online working,
Yeah.
digital nomading wasn't a thing yet. And so, we grew that company. And then together we launched our second company, which we scaled from 0 to 7 figures in like 18 months. And then now the work that we do in Lifestyle Rich, it feels like the culmination of all the online skills that we've done in the last decade. And so right now we have our coaching program, Lifestyle Rich, and then we also have like a software company, Hey Clients. But what that's done is it's opened up multiple avenues of, oh, there's so much abundance in this world. And it's all about just like boldly claiming what you want in life. I have multiple conversations with my husband, Tom, where sometimes we're like sat in the carpet and we're just like, we're reading books and we have like a candle lit. And I'm just like, did you ever imagine that it could be this good? Because back then, like could have never told me, hey, you'd be traveling the world and you'd be making multiple millions. You get to serve people, you get to work with incredible humans. Like back then, I'd be like, you're crazy. I'm just like, what do you mean? I'm just trying to make $1,000 here. But now you realize like the amount of overflow that there is. And it's all about being willing to go for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love, one of the things that I've resonated with you the more that I've gotten to know you and deepen in our sisterhood is the power of storytelling. And one of the things that we say inside of Here We Grow, and, my work is so focused on somatic expansion work with well. So it's like the body and really rewiring the nervous system and how there's the stories that live in our body that have been passed down from generations. And so our body is holding the stories of our mother, of our great grandmother that was held in the womb while we were being, developed. And then it's our responsibility as leaders creating a whole new reality for ourselves to rewrite our story. And otherwise, we continue to repeat the stories of the past, which so many of us, those stories were rooted in survival and they were rooted in scarcity. And so I know that your journey with entrepreneurship has been so intertwined with your husband's, and he holds a lot more privilege than you do, of course. And so I'd love to hear, like your specific journey, getting to rewrite your story with money from what it was with your mom or with your grandparents or with, just your lineage as a whole, and how you have, because I share this a lot, and we've gotten really deep into these conversations in the Revolutionary Rich series around, the way that the generational patterns, like we've had to continue to rewire and to rewrite them as we've gotten to expand our own capacity to be receiving and holding and stewarding higher flows of money when that just it wasn't available at all for the generations before us. And that's one of the big pieces that makes it so revolutionary rich, is like, yes, doing this in service to my community and to my clients, and also to this larger macrocosm of society of like women and women of color get to hold and steward wealth. And that in and of itself is so revolutionary rich. And so, there's so many women that I know who've been just having such phenomenal breakthroughs and ahas, and the feedback has been so good to get to receive with these lives and the podcast for the after it comes out, and it's inside of the podcast for those moments, those initiations where it's like I get to rewrite a whole new story for myself, but then there's the truth of what needed to be overcome to actually do that.
Yes.
So
that's such a powerful question. And this is one of the reasons why I love storytelling, is because realizing that you have the power to change and rewrite your story at any given moment is like mind blowing, right? And so there's two sides to look at this. There's the side to look at this as generational trauma, which is usually what rules and overrules and writes our life, or there's also sourcing from generational strength. My grandmother in the Philippines, like literally survived the Japanese occupation during World War II. And I think she had like four brothers who died, and she was protecting her sisters. One sister has a bullet wound on her hip, one lost a finger. And so for me, yes, there is so much power in being able to rewrite your own story and breaking free from these stories and narratives that are being passed on. But at the same time, I'm also choosing to source from her generational strength. And one of the reasons why I have been so relentless in like pursuing my life and really going for it. Like, I remember one of the most impactful stories for me was my grandmother had worked her entire life. She and my grandfather ended up setting up like a construction company, and they worked their entire life, never really took a lot of holidays. And finally they were like, we're going to retire. We're going to go to a trip to New Zealand. And this was like their big thing. They were saving up for it for so long. On day 3, my grandfather has a heart attack, and they had to cut the trip short. And it started like a 3, 4, 5 year cycle of just like hospitals, heart bypasses, everything. And so they never really got to do that. And I was just like, life is so short. And so for me, if I'm able to heal my relationship with money and claim that I can live in a space of overflow and abundance and really go out there and live my life, I was just like, I have this obligation to myself, to my family, to my lineage, to my grandma to do this. And so that has been like one of the biggest drivers for me. It's yes, we get to rewrite these scripts from the past, but at the same time, we also get to source strength from them, which I think is a really beautiful thing.
Mm. Oh my goodness. Yes. There was so many memories that were coming through as you were sharing this because it is such a big piece of the puzzle when it comes to also decolonizing our relationship with our body
Yes.
and with money and with business. And this is, so much of my work is rooted in decolonial anti-oppressive work that's really in liberation for all of us. And so when I'm hearing you and I'm just resonating so deeply because I'm thinking back of these moments in my life where I've remembered aspects of my ancestral ancient wisdom that I hadn't even known. Like I was just, it was like an amnesia,
Mm.
unknown. And then my spiritual connection is really what woke me up. So it's like, oh yeah, I remember because in my personal experience, and you might resonate with this, I'm curious if you do, my own lived experience in this lifetime in this body was I was very front facing with the survival of my family, like with my parents and my grandparents. Like the energy was like just to survive, just to get by, just to survive. Like that's what I had witnessed growing up. And so to remember before, generations before, where there's like the medicine women lineage, there's like this warrior lineage, and like sourcing the strength and the resilience and the wisdom from that changed the game. And I feel like this is something that's so true with those of us who are just such ambitious women who are relentless and like who start to reclaim more and more and more of our unapologetic power, where it's like it is such a driving force. It's something that when, God, when life is lifing and like things get thrown from left field and there's a hiccups and there's just so much more, so much more of all of the things, that it's the thing. For me, it's the larger mission, but it's a part of the larger mission, what we're talking about around yeah, like sourcing from our ancestral or our generational wisdom or guidance or medicine, or I like to call it magic as well. Like that's
Mm.
part of this larger mission of like being in deep connection with our body and with ourselves and with the relationships that we have and the quality of work that we're doing for ourselves and for our community. And so, yes, it's like it's a big piece here around allowing for the wisdom of who came before us to also be guiding us along the way. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear in your experience with healing your relationship with money, how that has unfolded in your life from the way that you used to relate or connect to money and your own journey of healing, of liberating it through either rewiring or rewriting the stories of the past or
Yeah.
sourcing the wisdom, sourcing the guidance from those whose wisdom you receive and so that support
It's
them.
so funny, like when you were saying this about how we're so connected to like the warriors and the plant medicine women, and I was just getting like full body chills because it is so profound when you actually think about it that way. Like I have done so much work when it comes to healing my relationship with money. And this goes hand in hand with, living a large portion of your life in this survival mode. I was always like working multiple jobs. My very first business was I was 8 years old, and I started my very first business, and I was selling desserts in the basement of our church. And throughout like high school and grade school, I always had this like side hustle, and so I was always hustling for money. And so for me, one of the biggest things that I have had to work on was money can be easy, and I don't have to break my back. I don't have to hustle to acquire wealth. And that took like a lot of like repatterning and a lot of just like, this is, I say this all the time. Our job as adults, self-actualized adults, is to question what is still true in your subconscious scripts and actually find out if this is serving you, if this is helping you get to your goal. And so at this time when we were growing our multiple businesses, there was still a part of me in the very beginning, especially, it was like, what do you mean we made $10,000? Like, this is crazy. Like, we're traveling and we're making this amount of money. And I'm just like, but it doesn't feel right. This feels too good to be true because I didn't have to work like 15 hours to make this
Yeah.
happen. And I was like freaking out.
Oh my
And then,
God, I love this so much. I'm having so many flashbacks as you say this.
and that's why I was like, there's so much overlap. And, the last 2 months, like a month ago, we had $100,000 month. Last month, it was a $71,000 month. And I was just like, I was literally traveling and going to all sorts of places. And so the main thing for me is that abundance and overflow is everywhere. And realizing that, like actually realizing that, one of my clients in my group program, Revolution, she was just like, why don't we see abundance as just like taking a breath of air?
Yeah.
It is like everywhere. And I was just like, oh my God, just like losing my shit over this. And I was just like, let's talk about this. And like we had like a really deep conversation. And I was just like, because if it is really around us and all we need to do is take a deep breath, I was just like, why aren't we doing this more? I say this about like wealth and abundance. I was like, when I sell my offers, I expect to sell. It's like opening a tap and water will appear. When you open a tap, you expect water to appear. And it's like, it's the exact same way, but it took a long time to get here. And even like just going back home and you're placed back into the family dynamics, a part of you is like, oh, you can
Yep.
see the work, all the work that you've done, but at the same time, you're just like, why is this so triggering?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. It's so real. It's so real. And like what ecosystems we're plugged into impact our experience of our own internal environment, right?
Yes.
Like we share space in really high level spaces with really high level conversations and high quality humans where wealth is something that is easeful and it's wildly overflowing and it's so normal for us to be celebrating, like 50K, 100K, 200K, like it's a normal thing. And it is wild because we are also we're one of the few women of color
Yeah.
in the spaces that we share. And so our stories are also unique from our ancestors and our lineage and what was normal for us growing up. And so even when you're sharing this, I was thinking about like back when I was living in my car and like stretching food to last from the leftovers of Beverly Hills Cheesecake Factory. And there were people coming in that were having like so much money. And it would make my whole week when someone would give me a generous tip because that was literally like I was like stretching dollars. And I remember it was like such a big deal, and at this point I'm already an adult. So I don't know, my early 20s. It would be such a big deal to have, like a $200, like a massive deal to have a $200 day in tips after working maybe 14, 15 hours. And then like how actually mind blowing to wake up to 15K cash as like a new normal, like just the quantum of it, like the energetics of it. And then also on a nervous system level. And then also the revolutionary richness of, oh, wow, what realities shift when we decide that we get to change the game and like that you get to be the one, that I get to be the one, that the people who are listening, like we get to be the ones that create entirely new normals for ourselves and for our families and for the people that we support and that we coach and that we allow for money to be a tool of liberation, really, versus that old way where it very much was and is for many, obviously still in the world, this like draining, depleting, extractive relationship. And so I love that you bring in this piece as well around like turning it on
Mm.
because it makes me think of, inside of Here We Grow, I use a lot of like garden analogies. And so I think about when we're in an ecosystem, when we're in an environment where we're all pouring into each other, that everyone in the garden, everyone in the ecosystem grows because no one is giving from the place of lack, right? Like I'm not pouring into you, you're not pouring into me, we're not pouring into the people we love from a place of lack. We're pouring into each other from a place of true wild overflow. And when we're pouring into the world from that place of wild overflow, it expands wild overflow for the world. And that's the ripple effect that actually changes the world. And so even when we take it out of our microcosm of our own little bubbles of like me and my family and my little bubble, but it's like, oh no, this is actually how we are changing the world by healing our relationship with money, because it allows for that ease and that pleasure. Like that in and of itself is a reclamation, like in our bodies. Like it gets to feel good to have the time of my life, like traveling the world. And we met in two really powerful events. Like I remember when we met in Funnel Hacking Live, and I that was a super spontaneous decision. I had not had
I
any
love that.
I had no intention at all to go to Funnel Hacking Live. I think I had decided the week before. And I just like, I flew all the way from Brazil. Like, I literally flew all the way from Brazil to go to this event with like, just, totally unexpected timeline. But for that to even be a possibility, that is a
Yes.
revelation, to have the access, to have the privilege to learn from, the 8-figure mentors and the multiple 7-figure mentors that I know both of us, we work with in our own worlds, in our own capacities, and we share some of those mentors and coaches, and to get to like receive wisdom, like to receive wisdom from those who, are creating ripples in their own way, and then have the joy and the pleasure, like, oh, I'm going to fly to Costa Rica. Like, I'm going to fly to Mexico, which I know that you have a home base in Mexico, which I love because I'm Mexican. And so it like is a warm place in my heart just to know that, yeah, that you have roots there. So this piece around like liberation and power and privilege and how we use it, I think is such an important, well, I feel in like my blood and my bones. It's such an important piece of this conversation. So let's go there,
Yeah.
around how it feels and your own experience. And, we can drop into some wealth transmission here around using privilege for good and the power that comes with having, and increasing and stewarding wilder flows of money and, circulating it out into the world. And then also in the kind of impact that we're creating.
Yeah, it's so funny because you nailed it on the head when you said it's crazy how just the environment affects what you normalize. And so this is one of the main reasons why getting yourself in spaces where you are expanded and your reality is expanded and you're just like, oh, I had no idea, is so
Yeah.
important, right? And so, but at the same time, it's also women like you and me who are openly talking about it. So like in the Philippines, talking about money is like one of the biggest
Mm,
taboos ever. And I know it
mm,
makes some people uncomfortable. And, I've had to had really like conversations about this. Like even with my parents, I'm just like, I've had to had conversations. And I was just like, look, my job, my mission, and I can feel it is because I want my life to be living proof
mm.
of what is
Yeah.
possible. And I was just like, which means I will not shut up about it,
Yes.
even when it's uncomfortable, because I want other people to see that it's possible for women of color like you and me to see, like, just because I was born in like a third world country, that opportunities like this are still available. Are you at a disadvantage? 100%. My husband and I, we talk about this all the time. He has a different story of why he's so passionate about helping women. Like, one of the reasons why our software companies focus just on women is he was just like, I literally remember one of my very first memories was my mom crying when he was 4 years old because she couldn't buy shoes. And they were about to start school and she couldn't buy shoes. And Tom was just like, if I can help empower women to bring their vision to a reality and have a small role in this ripple effect that we are all doing, he was just like, I'm going to go balls to the wall and really do this. And I'm just like, yes. And so I think it's using what fuels you to be a better steward of wealth, and at the same time to like talk about it. Like I make sure whenever I talk about like these high cash flow months that I am also talking about the real, the raw, the messy middle. Because what happens is a lot of people, they see the shiny $1 million awards and all these like insane amounts of numbers, and they go into comparison mode.
Yeah.
They go into, but I'm not hitting those numbers, and it might be a strategy thing, or it might be something wrong with me, or all of these things. But there is this balance between this is what's possible, and then at the same time it's just like this is what it took.
Yeah.
And that's the part of like the healthy being great stewards of wealth, is talking about the
Yeah.
process, right? Is
I'm just like, keep
that's
going. I'm just preach, girl. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Oh, don't stop. It's so good. It's actually why it was the idea behind this whole series, this whole Revolutionary Rich series. It came to me. It was really like, I trust so deeply. And I believe that the reason I've been able to expand my capacity with wealth is because of how deeply I trust in God and in spirit and divine and something so much bigger than me. Because I know I would not have been able to get here by myself.
No.
There's no way. And so when people like self-made millionaire, I'm like, if you want to call it that for yourself, you go, you Glen Coco. But I am not. I'm like community made. I'm family made. I'm all of my
It's beautiful.
and I honor them and I acknowledge them, and in my the spiritual realm as well. And that's what really inspired these revolutionary rich conversations, because these have been so edgy for me, because I'm like, ooh, I wonder where we're going to go. I wonder what we're going up. I wonder, what is available in the raw and the real and the depth of having the kinds of conversations that most people aren't willing to have because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. But as you and I know, discomfort is where there's the most growth. And so if you're a growth oriented person, and if you're listening to this or you're here live, then you're a growth oriented person, then you're willing to face the discomfort as much as it takes to become your highest evolution of yourself and to actualize your highest potential as a leader and take that responsibility with reverence and with the desire to use what you gain in the wisdom of leaning into the discomfort to serve humanity, right? And Mother Earth as well. That's what I believe. And so it's so important to name that. And I'm grateful that you did that. It's like, no, it's not just, 100K months. It's not just $1 million, however much. It's like, and this is what it actually took. And that's why I always say, like, I'm a money coach, and I'm like, it's not about money. I'm like, it's a part of it, and it's not about money, or it's not just limited to money, because it's so much more. It's beyond money, and it's about the way that we are choosing to use and work with money, and about who we become along the way of
Yes.
liberating ourselves with money, because there's no way. I know for myself, and I'd love to hear whatever comes through for you here on this, like, I would not have been able to experience the magic, the miracles, the blessings, the kind of connection I have with myself, with my body, with the people in my life, with my business, with my clients, with my family, like, if not for radically revolutionizing and liberating my relationship with money. Like, that is what gave me the support to change everything about my life, to elevate and expand everything about my life. And so when people, they lean into these kinds of conversations, maybe they've already been deep into money work, or maybe they're actually new and it's their first time. It's like there can be a tendency to get activated or triggered or have like a pushback around money conversations or around wealth conversations, because it's something that the body is unfamiliar with, of having, like, this is what's going on internally, and this is what it took to get to where I am now. And I want to, you and I, obviously we coach people in these kinds of things, and so it's like I want to guide you to allow for the process to be more easeful for you than it was for me, because this is all of what I had to go through,
Yeah. And it's actually so interesting because the concept of, how it was all propaganda, like to talk about money, the government, actually, this is a really interesting story, but you know how there's this big campaign about talking about money is like uncouth. You're not supposed to do this. It's, people who talk about money are like brass and this. This was actually a propaganda that started in like the factory worker days. The bosses were just like, you shouldn't talk about money because they didn't want the employees to compare
Yep.
their wages.
Yep.
And
They
I was
didn't want
just
people
like,
to know that we were
but
getting paid the least.
exactly. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Why is this still propaganda still here? Why aren't we actually being taught how to manage wealth, how to grow wealth? Like in schools, why isn't there, courses around this? And it's so crazy because when people talk about big money, all of a sudden people are like, oh, they're bragging, they're selfish, they're this. When in reality, when we normalize money conversations, the easier it is to actually grow and build wealth. I say this all the time, like healing your relationship with money is one of the best things that you can ever do for yourself and your business. And it's actually really funny because I feel like we have this overlap. My group program is called Revolution, and it is all around like starting a revolution in your
Wait,
business.
babe. Oh my God, I love this because you know my secret. You know my secret about my secret space that also has the word revolution in it. Did you know? I thought you knew,
No,
but I
I
love that.
don't.
Oh, okay. I love that because I have a secret space that one of the words inside of it is called revolution. So I was like, oh my God, I love this. I didn't even know there was that synergy.
Yeah, I didn't notice, but we started this because I was literally like, we have to start a revolution in your business. I was just like, if
Mhm.
you want to scale your business, you have to be like so deeply turned
Yeah.
on by what you are building. Like, you need to be like wildly obsessed by what you're building, who you are serving, and this is how you move past the initiations. And there's going to be so many initiations. And exactly what you said earlier, it's not about the money. And this is something that I keep going on and on about. And my clients are like, what do you mean it's not about money? I'm like, yeah, I'm just like, the end point is not about money, because if you make the end point about money, you're playing an infinite game, right? You're always just going to be like, but I want to go here, I want to go there. It is about who you become in the process. That is one thing that wildly successful entrepreneurs have learned.
Exactly.
They anchor themselves into who they are becoming. Because the game of entrepreneurship, we're the 1% crazy. We literally deal with like headaches and all these problems, and we get thrown in our faces, but we love it because we're obsessed with the game. We're obsessed with who we become as we grow and scale. We're obsessed with the people that we're able to help.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, it's like, yes, the money is amazing, but it's only a byproduct of the actual value and work that you put out in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Such a fucking juicy wisdom drop here. And it's so I love that you spoke into this piece about being wildly obsessed, because I'm running a program right now. It's not even a fucking program. I keep calling it that by accident, but it's an experience. Juiced Up June. And I had a bonus call literally yesterday. So this field feels so powerful around how wildly obsessed can we be about the mission that we're serving, about the vision that we're holding for something that is so big, that's so insane that we can't even make sense of it. Like, we can't even logic it out. And that's what calls us to rise into an entirely new version of ourselves. And we wouldn't have even known, like, oh, wow, I can hold this much power in my body. Like, that's one of the things that money has been so supportive as a resource to allowing me. And this is what's been blowing my mind. It was a whole inspiration for Juiced Up June, because the first month of Wild Overflow, my wealth mind, like watching these women, and this is the thing that I love having these conversations with women like you that are such powerhouses in your own businesses, is like watching how literally just 1 month of transforming and rewiring and expanding your relationship with money changes who you are entirely. Like, these women, who they were when they came into Wild Overflow, and then literally 1 month after, I'm like, whoa, because when we allow for money to open our bodies
Mm.
and open our minds to possibilities, to choices, to actions that we would have never dared to take. Like, oh my God, babe. And I'm sure you have so many wild, daring, like, moves that you've been making inside of your world. Like, I would not personally have been taking the kinds of actions or the wild moves that I'm taking now 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, because I didn't feel that much power in my body. But so much of what, expanding our wealth capacity is like, oh, I can hold so much more power in my body because I'm resourced. And like, whoa, the more resourced I am, the more of my own power that's already been here all along. I don't personally believe that we're like given power by others. I personally believe like we all have our own infinite amount of power that just gets activated and expanded by mirrors or by mentors or coaches or guides or sisters or whatever kind of activation allows for it to happen. But then it's like who I am now, who you are now is possible because of letting the resource of money create that expansion of the power that you hold. And it's like, ooh, to even think of the kinds of things that we're thinking, like I personally couldn't even think of the things that I'm thinking now, like let alone, like 1 year ago, 2 years ago, I wasn't thinking this big. I wasn't thinking this wild. I wasn't thinking this crazy. And now I'm like, let's go all in and see what happens because you can hold it. We
Yes.
know how to hold it now. So I mean, yeah, if there's pieces around that you want to speak into, especially with, I know that it's been such a wildly expansive time recently for both of us. And this last month, you've been in so many different environments and experiencing expansion while also the realities of what we all go through in contraction and growing through the contraction. And so, yeah, this piece around owning and expanding and reclaiming more power in our lives as we let money support us even more is a place that I feel is a really good place to jump into.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I say this, how you said the power is within us. I say this to my clients all the time. I was just like, my job is to hold a mirror for you to see how incredible you truly are. Because the work that I do, yes, I'm a business coach. Yes, I give you strategies, but a lot of the time it is allowing women to step into their brilliance, to really fucking own their story and just boldly claim who they are here to serve, what they are here to do. And so I say this all the time, your story is your biggest and it's your unfair advantage. It's the one thing that sets you apart from every other coach out there. And so why not sell through story? Why not get so turned on by the life that you are living? My husband and I, we make decisions. We literally make decisions by saying, okay, but what's the story? And so we're always just like, okay, should we fly to this place and do this crazy adventure? Like, last December, Tom was just like, I'm thinking of doing a marathon. I'm like, okay, great. He was like, in Norway in the middle of winter. And I'm just like, okay. And he was just like, but what's the story? I was like, all right, let's do it. And so we flew to Norway, rented out this like amazing cabin in the middle of nowhere and watched the northern lights every single night. And being able to do
Wow.
that and like on a whim, we were just like, we called his parents, we're like, you guys want to fly to Norway? And we flew his parents there, and it was just like being able to do that and live your life because of the wealth, because of the abundance, but at the same
Mhm.
time because you are so deeply rooted in what you're here to do.
Yeah.
You're so deeply rooted in living life to the fullest. Like, do it for the plot twist. I always tell my clients, I'm just like, come on, do it for the plot twist. But like so many of us are, we're like living life as if there are rules. But the
Mhm.
sooner that you realize that we are here to actually break the rules, like
Yeah.
we're here to break the generational curses, we're here to break income ceilings. Like literally, I have defied so many odds of just like experiencing racism, like all of these things. I have defined the odds, and that's the beautiful part. And this is why I'm so
Mm.
passionate about like using your story, living this extraordinary life, and really just like grabbing life by the balls and going, all right, how big can we go?
Oh my God, this is so good. One of the things I say inside of Here We Grow is beyond all limits and against all
Oh,
odds. And
I
I feel
love
like
that.
you're just encapsulating this so beautifully. And, one of the things that I'm really hearing here that I want to anchor in is around how when we continue to liberate our relationship with money, we realize that we can break the rules. It's like when we're under money's like a cage, by these oppressive systems, like you named racism and genderism, and then there's also all of the other systems that I'm not going to go super deep into in this conversation. But all of those, when those are like intertwined in our relationship with money in a way that feels like, like we're like in a little box, that when we liberate our relationship from money, it's like we're breaking free from the cage, and then we're like, I feel free and powerful enough to make my own rules, and this is the game of my life.
Yes.
And if this is the game of my life, and I break the rules that they told me I needed to follow, and I create my own rules, then now what gets to be possible? We're playing a whole new game. Like, and then you get to wake up to the infinite levels of the game that you get to play, that you're creating within your own life. And it's one of our mentors that says, I don't remember where it comes from. I think it comes from a book of there's like we're playing finite games in the
Yes.
what is the exact quote? Do you remember that, playing infinite games in the finite
In the
or finite?
finite world or something like that.
Yeah. And so like when we tie that into being revolutionary rich and reclaiming a liberated relationship with money, it's like, oh, if it if we're just continually unlocking more possibility, more freedom, then it makes it a fun playground. It makes it even business. It's like we're allowing for that creative potential to unlock possibilities for ourselves and for our clients and for our community and for our lineage and for the world that didn't exist in the previous paradigms. And so then it's just like, okay, how much fun can I have just unlocking my own levels while owning the stories that we're creating and the power of those stories. And so I love this so much. I want to drop in. Actually, there's some things in the chat I want to see. I love that. What's the story? Says Yama. Oh, we have some wild overflow queens. Yes, pour that juice in. We have Juiced Up Queen. Juiced Up June is lit, experimenting with that. Okay, beautiful. I love these. This is so good. Okay, so one of the ways that has felt really fun and turned me on about closing up these conversations is asking, what is it that feels revolutionary rich right now for you in your life? What is it that feels the most revolutionary rich? And so if there's any pieces, last drops of wisdom that you want to share before asking this question, feel free to do so. And I'd love to end off with, like what is feeling the most revolutionary rich in your life?
I think for me, especially after, coming off the back of having these like 2 amazing big months, whilst also being so deeply grounded in me and the work that I'm here to do, in travel and being able to enjoy life, it's really creating your dream life and being so intentional with it. Our entire brand is called Lifestyle Rich because our whole thing is we're here to help women create money in moments. Like, yes, the amazing high cash flow months are incredible, but if you aren't taking the time to anchor in these moments with the people that you love, then what good is it? And I know that this is something that you do. Like, I see your stories with your niece and this. And so, Tom and I, this is something we do for our family. Last year, we flew out my nephew to Mexico, and he was just like, now he's like interning for one of our companies. Last week, we flew Tom's younger brother, who was like 19, and he's just like blown away by the world of entrepreneurship. And we got to share that with him. And now he's taking like sales courses. And it's like, being able to create moments like that with family, and not just even from just the business perspective, like being able to share with family, being able to give so generously, being able to give from a place of just like, I feel so great being able to do this. That has been the biggest shift in my life over the last couple of years. And to be honest, it's like our biggest why. Between Tom and I, we have 3 sets of parents. We're saving up to actually retire all 3 sets. And so this is like one of the big goals that we're working towards. Um, we bought a villa in Bali last year and paid cash. Like these types of things where I'm just like, life does not make sense. But as soon as you get over that, and as soon as you're like, oh, okay, life doesn't make sense. So how am I going to play all out? if you can make your own rules, and if literally I have gone from making $360 a month to receiving these large amounts of money, and I was just like, well, you can create your own reality at any time, you can make your own rules. And so really embracing that, but like really on like a somatic level as well. From like a mental level, you're like, okay, there's money everywhere, but like on a somatic level of like understanding that is one of the things that I'm just like, yes, that feels good. This is why I'm working, and this is what makes me feel wildly wealthy at the
Mm,
moment.
so beautiful. This is such a perfect way to end, because one of the things I talk about a lot, and that's of course a theme inside of the Revolutionary Rich series in this podcast, is how it's an inside game. You know,
Yes.
feeling the richness, it's an internal experience, it's an internal state. I call it the wild overflow state. Like when you're allowing for your internal wild overflow to then become externalized and like pour into the people that we care for and that we love for and that we want to support. And so I love that we've dropped into this gold mine. And I'm so grateful that we had time together, and for your presence in my life and our sisterhood. And I know I have my trip to Bali coming up to see your villa, so that's gonna be
I'm so excited. And thank you for having me. Like, this was such a fun, expansive conversation. And it's one of those things that I'm just like, more women should have open conversations like this, and should, this type of information of talking about wealth from this like really grounded, solid energy, talking about wealth from a place of, I want to do more good with the money that I'm being entrusted with. And these
Mhm.
are all like super important conversations that I'm bringing to my community, that you're bringing to your community. So I'm just like, yes to all of this. I've enjoyed this so much.
Yay, me too. Yeah, I'm so grateful and so honored. And this was so good. So those of you that have dropped in live, thank you for being here. I love hearing feedback. Like I genuinely love when people are like, oh, this part really landed for me, or this really spoke to me, or this part really resonated. So please feel free to DM me and let me know what landed. And if you're open to that too, you can let us know if you're open to that, Anna. And
Absolutely.
if you're watching the replay from this, or if you're watching, or if you're listening to the podcast, then you'll have all of the information that Anna has sent us over, sharing her work, so you can get to know her better. And then right now inside of Juiced Up June, we have 30 days of somatic wealth expansion, where this is actually something that just happened a few days ago, where we've created a tier that's having revolutionary rich conversations inside of Juiced Up June with some of like phenomenal partners inside of this experience. And so we're going to be having coaching and conversations that are revolutionary rich conversations on co-creating regenerative millions. It's a VIP tier that we just added, and this came out of like God, spirit, universe. So I'm super excited for this whole new level that's been added into that experience, and for the people that are going to get to know you and get to be inside of your world. So thank you again so much, and I am blessing up the rest of your day for those of you that are here live.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.